Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope the first video was very helpful, and from the feedback I'm getting today, we are going to talk about how to do best in an interview, like preparing for an interview and then acing it and getting the job. So that is what we are going to talk about today. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Leave a comment what you think we can do in the next video as we help ourselves, and then subscribe to the channel so that you get notifications whenever I post. The interview process starts when you apply for the job. Once you apply for the job, once you think you are qualified for the job, and then you apply for it, the interview process starts. Why am I saying this? So when you think you qualify for a job and you apply for it, we should be at a point where you just copy the job description of the role you are applying to into a Word document and maybe save it as like training coordinator, Amazon, human resource generalist, Amazon. I am saying this because oftentimes we apply for as many jobs as we can, which I've talked about in the previous video. You get an interview and you are like, which role is even calling me for the interview, and you really don't know what to say. So the job description outlines what you are going to do in the interview, and that is normally the criteria for assessment in interviews. So do not forget to save the job description. Please do not forget to save the job description. That way, when you are called on an interview from Amazon, I know I apply for the human resources generalist role. I just go to my Word document, pull it up, and then what I am expected of to do. So you tailor your interview answers accordingly. The company website is a great resource for acing your interview. Why am I saying this? The company website has a part called our interview process. When you click on our interview process, it gives you the opportunity to know how the interview is going to go like. So some companies will give you their first interview, which is a phone interview, their second interview, then the third interview maybe with a panel, and then a site visit. So you get an overview of what the interview process is going to look like, which is very, very helpful. So I think that you should look at that, the company website, the part that says our interview process. Knowing the company. If I say knowing the company, oftentimes we apply for jobs because we really need a job, and then you don't really know the company, but because we fit in the role, we apply for it. That is perfectly fine. That is fine. So if I say knowing the company, I mean that you should learn about the company. There is no one that has applied to Amazon and do not have to learn about their leadership principles. That is about Amazon. There is no one that has applied to Freeport McMoran and do not have to learn about how they prioritize safety. Know the company and know what is very important to them and hit on that. Reviews. Reading reviews on Glassdoor, Indeed, and Google itself. So Glassdoor, you go there, you have to log in. Indeed, the same way, but they are a great resource. One thing I've realized about Glassdoor and Indeed is that usually the reviews are like a long time, 2019, 2018. So I think that might not be like really relevant, which although will give you like an idea of the whole process. So it helps. It does help, but it's not really relevant because 2020 COVID hit and everything has changed. Companies have altered their interview process, so you would want to look for a more recent review that talks about the company's interview process, which will be very helpful. When you've gotten the opportunity to interview for a role, they schedule a calendar invite with you and then some people. Please look up the people on LinkedIn. When you look up the people on LinkedIn, you are able to have an idea of their experiences and their qualifications. So it becomes interesting when you know their qualifications, what they did, where they have been. You are able to connect with them and then speak about relevant things in the interview. I do not advise to go in an interview without knowing the panel. That is, if possible. Some companies know this, so they schedule the interview with just one person. I'm talking from experience. I looked the person on LinkedIn and the person was not there. So that way there is no opportunity for you to look up the person on LinkedIn. But when there is the opportunity, seize it. Look up the person on LinkedIn and find their qualifications, what they have been through, like career-wise, and then how you can emphasize on that. Be yourself in the interview. When I say be yourself in an interview, so I earlier talked about Glassdoor, Indeed, Google. You sometimes get reviews, right? So you know that, oh, Amazon is going to ask you, tell me a time you failed and you had to pick up yourself. So like the person gave an example, oh, I did this and that and then it didn't go well, and then you try to memorize the same thing, like it doesn't help. So be yourself. Talk about experiences without having to memorize whatever you have learned. It happened to me. Sometimes I memorize and then I forget the word supply chain analyst, and that is it. And then you are off. So that way you start talking about things that do not relate to what you really wanted to say. So please be yourself and then talk about your experiences. Don't try to memorize whatever you find on reviews. It gives you an idea of what to talk about, but don't memorize them. Star. I believe everyone has heard about the star before, and it becomes very annoying when you are really tense for an interview and people are talking about the star, star, star. What do I mean by the star? Star stands for the situation, the task, the action, and the results. So tell me about a time you gave all your best in a project. What is the situation? Ask yourself. What is the task? What were the actions I took and what were the results? This is a very good resource for writing your resumes, but we are not talking about that. We are talking about using star in an interview. So let me give an example. So give me a time you gave all your best in a project. I was involved in a consulting project where I had to go to Texas. That becomes my situation. What was the action? We were supposed to develop a near-shore buy or make strategy for a company that was looking to offshore its operations to Mexico. That was the task. What was the action? Using data analytics tools like Tableau, we were able to reach out to suppliers in Mexico, and then you get what I mean. So the action is what you did. What did you do? And the result is overall we provided a very relevant recommendation to the company, which has helped the company to start its operations or start its nearshore buy or make strategy. That was simple, right? Yes. So when you are asked a behavioral question, behavioral is tell me about a time. So in HR, we say that behavior of a person in the past helps to determine their behaviors in the future. That is very relevant, right? So that is why we ask behavioral questions in an interview. So a time you did what? Whenever you are asked that question, go back into your memory. You have to act fast and then organize your thoughts into a STAR method. And I bet you that will not fail you. Next, we are talking about how every interview counts. When I say every interview counts, the phone interview counts, the first interview counts, the final interview counts. If there is a site visit, it does count. Why am I saying this? Oftentimes you get the phone interview, yes, you progress to the next stage, you get the second interview, yes, that is good. So in the final interview, interviewees feel that, oh, I'm almost through with this company. And so it turns that we get too comfortable in talking about experiences, or sometimes we feel like we've really spoken about all the relevant stuff. So the third interview is not needed. Trust me. Don't make a mistake. Treat every interview as though it is your very first interview in the process. And that is a key way in like putting yourself out there from the beginning of the interview process to the end. In the US, I think that is interviews are not, they do not make you so like tensions. So I met an interviewer, and how is the weather in Arizona? I'm in Minnesota and it's so cold and we don't even go out. I was like, oh, Arizona is so hot. Like we spoke. So there was that informal conversation and you think, oh, this person is good. So you get too comfortable. Do not get too comfortable in an interview. Please make sure that you take every question they ask you so serious. Don't think because the person started with an icebreaker or an informal session makes them get what I'm trying to say. Don't do that. Your life depends on this job you want to get. Approach it with all seriousness. Do not get so comfortable in an interview. That's another point I was going to talk about, but it looks like I merged there too. So if I said do not get so comfortable in an interview, I had done a first interview with a company, I did a second interview, I did a third, and I went for a site visit. And I got there, the first thing the hiring manager said was, this is an informal session. Like, you got a job already. So like I was like, okay, sure. Like, sure. So we went for lunch. They were asking me questions. How do I like my job? How did I do in this? How did I do in that? Forgetting that it was part of the interview process, but because he began with this is an informal interview session, so I don't want you to be so tense. Be yourself. Trust me, that takes me to my next point. Non-verbal cues are very, very important. So this job that I was talking about, unfortunately, I did not get the job. Why am I saying this? So I told the hiring manager that I wanted feedback on the interview, right? And then we had a Microsoft Teams call, and he was like, you look so disinterested. And I was like, oh my God. Why will I have to travel that far to a place, even if it's near? Why will I go to a company's premises if I do not want the job? Why would I have to be seen as looking disinterested? I bet you don't want this to happen to you. So please make sure that you are paying attention to the non-verbal cues in an interview. Be as professional as you can, be as strict as you can, ask questions. Please ask questions. I'm talking from experience. I try as much not to focus my video on the things on Google, because yes, we've seen them every time. Please ask questions. I look disinterested because I did not ask questions. So find questions and ask. Please ask questions. Pay attention to your non-verbal cues. The last thing is to follow up on interviews. Please follow up on interview. If you don't, and the other interviewee does other things with Nicole, your performance is on the same thing. If I reach out and you don't reach out, what do you think? The one that reached out is serious than the one that does not reach out, right? Yes, so please reach out on interviews. Hi, Alex, I love the interview so much. The interview has even made heightened my interest for this role. I am so happy to help your company. Looking forward to a response. That is short, but it does go a long way than finishing an interview and not following up. If they tell you are going to hear back in a week and you have not, a day after a week or 2 days after a week, hi Alex, I was expecting a feedback on this date. I'm looking forward to it and I'm so excited to work with your company. I'm so excited to join your team. That go a long way than not following up at all. I'm not saying it always does work, but it has worked for multiple people that I know. So you would want to follow up on your interviews. So basically that is the end of this video. I hope that this video is also helpful. In our next video, we are going to have interview with people that have had their experiences applying for PhD, getting their job at reputable and high-profile companies, small, medium-sized companies, and how their experiences play out. Mind you, one of their story will be your story. So don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, comment, and then like, subscribe, turn on notification, and share the link to other people. Bye.